Everything else is pretty much the same as far as our objectives. A lot of it relates around security, replacing some equipment, fiber expansion. The notable differences in next year's budget is around our subscription renewals. We have some renewals that are up this year that are for multi-year terms, so that increased the budget. Where last year we didn't have those renewals because of period time. This year, those 3 or 2-year renewals have a larger impact than they did previously. Our Office 365 licensing is the first full year of the additional licensing that we need to upgrade our Office suite. Another addition is a network security assessment by an external auditor. We're replacing some desk phones. Every 2 years when the commission is elected, we replace your iPads and your cell phones. Additional training for staff. There's a lot of costs that previously were in, not in the IT budget. They were in non-departmental. So if they were IT related telecommunication services, those are in IT now. It helps me better manage them and monitor the spending of them. So internet connections, phone connections. Each department still has their own cell phone budget, but it's more the ones that are overall city use type connections. As far as staffing goes, I have a half of a position for the AV technician that is going to go to the city manager's department, or city manager / city clerk. Those are all my notable changes in the budget side. Next year, of course, more cybersecurity as it relates to the House bill, following the NIST cybersecurity framework, trying to implement an end-to-end network security platform for our network, and upgrading more network infrastructure. We're going to continue to partner with the UC for connecting fiber, and we're going to use as much ARPA funds to do that, and start planning on being able to relocate our data center to west of 95, just creating that plan and what is it going to cost, which will be several years away. Any questions or comments?
Jake, speak up.
Yes, Thomas.
Jump in.
The fiber optics, is that
Yes.
ongoing or work in progress now?
So we have a project in place right now that I think was passed last summer, and because of hardware constraints, the people who are implementing it, we partnered with the UC, and then they had a company that's implementing it, and because of part constraints, they're still waiting on parts to put in a portion of the fiber, and then we're going to continue to work with them to get our additional sites on, so we don't have to pay Spectrum those monthly costs for a limited amount of connectivity where we can control our own network connectivity.
And another quick question, Thomas. Our devices that we use, I know it's probably a nominal amount of money, but can we repurpose them and use them again for other staff?
The tablets will be able to repurpose for anybody who has a need for one. The cell phones, after about 2 years and the abuse that they get, they'll be probably kept around as spares, but I don't know that we would necessarily issue. And through the service provider, we get most of our cell phones are at a pretty reduced cost. So most of the ones you guys have, I think, a little higher of a model, so they have a little bit more cost, but usually they're low to no cost.
So there's no nominal gain?
Not really, no.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any further questions? Well, unless I'm going to somehow channel Russ, IT is not my thing. So you're going to leave unscathed. Thank you again for your presentation. And,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the good work.
Have a good
All
afternoon.
right. Airport. Good afternoon. How are you
Good
doing
afternoon.
today?
How are you all?
Doing
Good, sir.
well.
How are you?
Let's see here. Got it. All right, well, thank you all very much for the opportunity to talk about my favorite department, the airport. As you know, I have been now with the city just about 6 months and taken over for Adam, who was the interim airport manager until he left in March. So just to kind of recap quickly, the airport, over 700 acres of land, 72 T-hangars now. We have 3 intersecting runways, various aeronautical commercial tenants. I've listed some of them there, some of the major ones. Multiple industrial tenants in the non-aeronautical area, and of course several city departments, the skate park, sports complex, VFW Garden Club, etc., all on airport property. Our local role, it is a public use facility. The FAA designates our airport a notch above just a regular GA airport because of its size and because of its proximity to some of the other larger airports. Primary uses are corporate, business, flight training, charter, sport, tourism, and government services, including mosquito control. Our vision, we serve as a gateway to the aviation community for visitors and business owners, as well as the local residents. Our vision is to continuously enhance safety and security while promoting the local economic development and remaining an economic asset to New Smyrna Beach and its surrounding communities. This past year, just to kind of recap, we completed a construction phase of Taxiway Charlie. We had some revised geometry for our runway 1129. That has been completed. And the only outstanding item on that is there's still a little bit of grass that's struggling, but we think we fixed that this week. We recently had an FDOT inspection for our airport, and we passed with flying colors. They were very pleased with the progress that has been made this past year. Completed demolition of 2 T-hangars. They were known as B and C. Those were from World War II era, and they were torn down. There's a part of that project that's still ongoing, a project apron infill that we are discussing with our users now to make sure that we utilize the best space, utilize our money as best as we can for that project. Airfield marking and signage. The marking project has been complete. We had enough money left over. We were able to go back and amend that so we can now do some signage that we need. T-Hangar H, that's complete. It's full. We have strong demand for T-hangars. We still have a waiting list of about 120 people. So the demand for T-hangars remains strong here. We mitigated 2 outstanding FAA runway safety action items, which was a good win in the eyes of the FAA. Of course, we were celebrating 75 years of service here, and we did have work with Chris Edwards on trying to open up some airport property for development. Org chart is as seen here. Staffing remains unchanged this coming year. So, to kind of get into our budget comparison, which I'm sure you have the notes on, I want to explain some of this a little bit in more detail. Personnel services dropped a little bit. That's really the best as I could see from that is because we did, Rhonda retired, so some of her benefit pack, some of her benefits went with her, so that changed a little bit. Operating expenses are going to go up just a little bit this year. Capital, so one of the things I'm asking for today, and I'll explain that in just a minute, is the original budget called for a reduced capital outlay. One of the items came back, which I'll just show in just a minute when we get into capital outlay, but one of the items came back significantly higher. All of them came back higher, as I'm sure you're seeing with other things because of cost of materials and labor. But this was a little bit increased scope, which I'll go into more detail. This is for one of our taxway projects. Our revenues are going up. We've got additional revenue from a property that we acquired just about a month ago, Baker Aviation, which is going to generate $135,000 a year. And then depending on CPI, we've got a lot of leases that are coming up that need increases that are due. So there's a couple things that I'd like to request and have your consideration on. In speaking with Khalid and as I'm learning more about the airport, I'm seeing some areas that are deficient. You may have noticed them, and I think this would be something that Rhonda was aware of as well. But some of the buildings are in need of significant repair. This is going to be an ongoing problem, of course, but some of these are older, and you may see when you drive down Turnbull, you may see some buildings that look decrepit. There's some safety concerns there. I've spoken with the fire marshal and building department, and we have plans to go around, determine a long-term strategy for how we address some of these buildings as they continue to life, as they continue to age, to make sure we stay ahead of it and we don't create any safety issues as we could. That's one of the fears. So I'm asking for a little bit of that additional money as I become aware of that. I'd also like to consider putting together a small air show next year, something we haven't done here in a long time. From what I hear from the community and from what I hear from different people, that's something that the community misses. I know that hasn't happened here in a long time, and I'm sure there's reasons why, and I'm sure, the economy, et cetera. I'm not familiar with all those reasons, but it's something to consider as we go into next year, the end of next year. Noise, I'm sure that's a subject that's near and dear to all of our hearts. That's something that I work on a little bit each day, our noise abatement program. I'm in almost constant contact with the flight schools, Embry-Riddle, Phoenix East, the myriad of flight schools that we have in this area. From what we can tell, flight training, we're in a pilot shortage. This is a big deal. You can see, when you watch the news, you can see airlines are getting delayed. Flight schools are under tremendous pressure to get some of these flight students done. And I don't think we see this letting up anytime soon. This demand is going to continue to be there. And that does impact us. When it comes to all the noise that we're experiencing, one of the things that I have recommended that we do is go back to the study that we did in 2011 and have our consultants refresh that. Take a look at that, see, are we doing everything we should be doing? What are some new things that we could look at? What are some new strategies? We need new tools. We want to make sure that we haven't left anything out. Maybe there's some other options for us. So I'm asking for $50,000 for that. I am awaiting on a proposal from our consultants now. That was an estimate they gave me. The original study, if I'm not mistaken, was around $250,000. This would not be a full-blown new study. This would be an addendum. This would take what we already know, and this would tweak it since it's been about 10 years since we did that study. We have seen there is an increase in flight activity since then. If you break it down in a 5-year period, we went from 140,000 operations a year till now in the last 5 years, the average is right around 180. So there's definitely an increase. It seems somewhat stable in the last few years. In fact, year to date, we're down just a little bit from last year, if you go calendar year. But again, I'm asking for that just because I think that's important to the community, and I think it's something we would all benefit from, making sure we're doing everything we can. Fences and gates, that's a minor thing. It's just really, we originally budgeted 5, and I just need another 5 because that's really what we spent. Exterminator service, another $1,500 there. That's just recently found out we don't have termite bonds in some of our commercial buildings, and you wouldn't think metal buildings need, but they do. They can still get termites because there's wood materials in there and things like that. So And there's some portions of some of the hangars and some of the buildings that have wood, build outs in them from years ago. Capital improvement, so those numbers came back from the original estimate. They are now higher. One of the things we get, our airport gets, they call bill money, bipartisan infrastructure loan. So our airport qualifies for $295,000 a year. And that is 2% local share because FAA kicks in 90, FDOT kicks in 80 or 8. So we get to choose. It can't be revenue generating items that you can repair, but it can be things like infrastructure, electrical, lighting systems, things like that. One of the most critical items that we need to look at in the short term is our precision approach lighting and electrical vault upgrades. So the vault, which powers all the electricity for the airport, it's old. There's some things that it needs upgrades for. The biggest project that we have is the taxiway alpha rehabilitation, and that was originally at $400,000 because they were going to come in and just basically seal coat, do some installation of the secondary wind cone. There was going to be just more of a, rehab, extend its life. This is a complete reconstruction, extend the life about 20 years of that taxiway. So it's a significant more value. T-hanger rehab, that's coming back higher. Fuel farm improvements, these are all things that we had originally had on our budget, but they're just coming back higher. The increase local share would be $90,000. The value goes up about $2.8 million, but our local share is about $90,298. That's estimated, of course. Our goals this year, along with addressing the things that I've already talked about, maintain the airport runways, the infrastructure. We got to stay ahead of the game. There's a lot of 700 acres, all the concrete, all the asphalt, all the buildings. It's a never-ending job to make sure we maintain it safely, continue to make the airport self-sufficient as it is now. Just continue and attract new aviation and industrial businesses, and continue the work that's been done in the past, the great work that's been done from obtaining grants. We have a great relationship with the FDOT and the FAA. We spend their money. That's something they like. They like it when an airport spends their money because they want to spend it, and they have a pool and they want to give it to us. And so we're going to try our best to continue that relationship. Sorry if I was long-winded.
No, that's great. No worries. Arvin's been here not too long, 6 months. Go easy on him.
Yeah, be gentle.
Okay, who's first up? Who'd have some comments? Go ahead, Jake.
I'm sorry, it's Arvin?
Arvin, yes.
Arvin, let me ask you about the fuel farm improvements. When we look at those figures, the original estimate, 280,000, the current estimate, 500,000, and then we see the variance. The FDOT grants 80%, city 20%. So we pay 20% of, let's say, the current estimate of 500,000?
Correct, yes.
So I'm just looking for ways, even pennies to pinch somewhere. Is it a real benefit for us to hold back on that extra tank for the fuel farm and put it off for a year? That's just a question to throw out there. I'm a real big proponent of operations fees. I know, do you know if it's customary at some airports to, every touch and go, every landing, every takeoff, there's a fee charged?
So that's one of the things that we're asking our consultant to look at, to make sure that we fully understand all the aspects of it. Well, I've done some preliminary research that says, yes, it's possible. It's not the norm for airports of our size, but it is allowed, provided we do it in the right way. We can't discriminate. We have to be fair to each user. We can't single anyone out. We can't make it punitive. If the FAA thinks that we're trying to do it to punish or prohibit, then they would have an issue with it. But we can certainly do it and certainly look at it and come back with more information so you can make an informed decision.
Thank you. That's strictly a form of revenue, not to single anyone out at all. I'm sorry, losing my thoughts, but I'll get back with it. Also for the future, Is it possible to visit cameras at the end of runways? This is an expense for the long term for you to think about. Hopefully you'll be here for a long while. To take tail number, record tail numbers to see who's operating there.
So, yes, to answer your question, you can do that. There's companies that do that. There's a company called Vector that I've spoken with about doing that. Their business model is to capture tail numbers and then bill for using the facilities if somebody, say, does touch and goes. It's typically done for aircraft that are larger, commercial and then larger general aviation aircraft, corporate jets. However, we have a program called VerTower. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but we started using last year that Adam and Rhonda put into place. That system makes it so that we don't necessarily need a camera. We can actually see the identification number and registration number of every aircraft that comes in and out of New Smyrna Beach. I can go so far as to tell you exactly when they landed, exactly where they are. I can show you a live picture. It's helped us with our noise abatement, but also will help us with statistics.
I'm sorry, you brought up noise abatement, and that's been mulled over ad infinitum with very angry residents. And as I see the need for pilots, those schools are they're already gigantic, and they're going to grow. Those operations are going to have more noise complaints, unfortunately. I hope not. And so we're looking to mitigate that somehow.
Yes, we are looking at all our options, including working with other airports that are experiencing the same thing as us. We're not the only ones. This is not a New Smyrna Beach problem. This really is, especially in this area, especially in Volusia County, especially in East Central Florida like we are. It's a significant problem. The FDOT recognizes that this area trains about 50% of the world's pilots, the world, not just America. So it's significant impact to our communities.
And I'll finish, but the cab in the tower had those improvements to the AC system because...
Yes, that should be done by the end of next month. There's been some electrical delays, but we anticipate it'll be done no later than the end of the fiscal year.
Thanks, Harvey.
So I know the operations building was on last year's budget.
Yes.
And kind of got sidelined.
Yes.
Where is it? Where are we with that?
I talked with the FDOT about that because they are the ones that were giving us the money. They're ready to go when we are. It's a matter of timing. Now that we push that down the chain a little bit, we do have other projects that are, upcoming and pressing, the things we don't want to fall behind on maintaining the infrastructure. So one of the things is we want to make sure, and that's a conversation that I need to have more with the city manager, and that is, are we exactly sure where we want the building? There's a few things that I've noticed as I've been here that I want to have further discussions on about where the location of it, if it's the best location, serves the airport the best. And but barring that, it's back in our schedule to do, I believe, I'd have to look, I can let you know for sure, but I believe it's back on the schedule for 2025.
Okay.
Any else? Go ahead, jump in there if you have any comments.
No, just a question. A while back, we had one of our tenants that was pretty far behind on rent.
Yes.
Where does that stand?
City manager and I have been working diligently to get that situation rectified, and there has not been definite, although there's been some progress, we have not seen that come to, at this date, it has not been fixed.
Okay. Where we stand now, it should be, because we're done with all our viruses, we're done with everything else for all practical purposes, and hurricanes out in the Caribbean. It's time that they be brought current, and I think we have to take a harder line at it. Don't want to lose a good tenant, but we also don't want to support their operations. It's the only comment I have.
All right. So a couple questions for you, T-hangers. We have about a waiting list, 120 long, a lot of demand for it. One of my irritations in the past is that people use them for non-airport uses. What are we doing to make sure, people store boats in there? I'm gonna put my name on a list so I can get a nice size hangar and pay a lot less than I would pay U-Haul Storage or anyone else. So the question is, how are we dealing with that? And are these 120 people gonna use it for airport storage, or should I put my name on there because I have cups and cones and all kinds of stuff that I wanna store for a very reduced price?
We recently implemented a requirement that a person provide us with valid registration showing that they are the owner of that aircraft in order to be put on the waiting list.
Okay, do we do any kind of inspection on what's actually
Yes.
inventoried in there?
Yes.
Okay, good.
On a
So-
regular basis, we go in, we see what's in there. This is something that we just started. I'm in the process of actually evicting a couple people because it's non-aeronautical use. It's just totally not, and that's actually a grant assurance violation, so we have to be very careful with that, make sure we're vigilant on that, and that's what we're trying to do.
Good. I'm very glad to hear that. I can tell you that there's one particular one that faces US 1, and I've driven by for years and seen boats in there. I have not seen the boat in recent memory. So that's a great sign. I love that.
There are other, I will say, there is a boat or two that's that's not in a hangar, then we're working on that as well.
Yeah.
Because technically, the parking of personal vehicles and stuff like that is not allowed on airport property as well. Not just in a hangar, but.
Sure. Yeah, I was more, yeah, the hangars have always been, airport uses, I think there's been a holistic movement to try to get the airport working as an airport
Right.
operational use. So the 130,000 roughly Baker Aviation, is the primary income that we get on the airport from leases?
Yes, that's a fair statement.
So when you have, is it also accurate that, how do you measure? Is it every time someone touches down volume at an airport? Is it also taking off? What is the general way you measure the volume at an airport?
Yes. It's operations, which is one takeoff is an operation, a landing is an operation.
Okay.
So if somebody lands and they take off, that's technically two operations because they're using the runway, and then touch and go would be more like one. But if you're touching down, you're taxiing, you're going somewhere, you're using the airport, then you take off, that's two.
Okay. So with our airport, would it be fair to say that the majority of the operations at the airport are flight schools? Not one in particular, just flight schools in general.
That would be a fair statement.
Okay. So when we look at the airport in general and we say we have one specific kind of use having the vast majority of operations, are they also paying the vast majority of the income that the airport needs to generate?
No, a lot of, and when you say use, so land is a use, so I should clarify that a lot of the rent we receive are from businesses that are contributing. They may be aviation businesses, but maybe there's not a lot of takeoffs and landings associated. But as far as operations themselves, yes, you are correct. In fact, there's a lot of users who are using the airport that never buy anything. And that's one of the,
Buy anything or land an airplane?
They may not even land, and if they're not landing, they're definitely not contributing financially. But that's not unheard of since it's a public airport.
So does New Smyrna have a much higher operation from flight schools than Edgewater, Ormond Beach? Do you have any data on what that is?
No, I could find out.
Yeah, I'd love for you to find out. That would be great, because I'd like to see. Where I'm obviously getting at is, when we look down the road at the airport, the way I see it, one specific use is the vast majority of what the airport is being used for. They use a lot of space too. I mean, I look out on the airport and there's planes all lined up. So my question is, from an income and operational sense, where are we actually generating the money? Is that the best use? Is that the best use for the quality of life level of service? Is that the best use for the income and operations of the actual airport as a whole? Do we want to expand our flight schools? Do we want to retract the flight school, that specific use? Just trying to get an understanding of where exactly the future of the current airport is and where the future of it's going to be. Seems to be regulated by the FAA. Usually no questions can be answered without looking at the FAA. So I just want to plant that seed in, okay, what is the future use of our airport? At one point, it was the idea of keep it small, keep it simple. Well, not small and simple when it comes to one specific use. That has grown exponentially. Not sure that was the original intention of that. I know other airports and other businesses come down to New Smyrna, use it a lot. So my question is, okay, are we financing other people's personal for-profit companies? So that's the general direction that I'd like to go. And if you can give me those numbers on the operations from the flight schools for New Smyrna, Edgewater, Ormond, you know, give us an idea of what we're looking at in the area. Is it disproportionately affecting us? Do we want that? Is it a good thing? Do we want to expand on it? So, like to find out, get us some sort of context as to how our airport is operating in terms of who's using it, what we're getting out of it. Is that the best use?
Right.
Thank you. Any other further comment from the commission? Go ahead.
Question on your question, Vice Mayor. Are you asking if, like, Embry-Riddle is sending students down to use our planes or with their own planes to do touch and goes, and we derive no benefit? Is that?
So we don't have planes. People have their own planes. They come
That
down and
too.
use our airport. So what I'm just trying to do is get an idea of, we have Edgewater has an airport,
Right.
New Smyrna has an airport, Daytona has an airport, Ormond has an airport. And my question is, or my observation is that New Smyrna has a very large one specific use, which is flight schools, probably disproportionate. The vast majority of what we experience.
Yes.
What about the surrounding airports around us? Are those airports being used? Are we disproportionately being used as opposed to other airports in the area? Why are they coming here? And is that a good thing? If it's a good thing, should we expand on that? And then when you look at our airport from a financial aspect, are we getting the best bang for our buck in terms of what our airport's being used for? Because it's kind of like a business. We have a tremendous amount of high volume. Some people will want lower volume. I will say that from the city as a business, in the context of a business model, New Smyrna doesn't have a lot of infrastructure. We can't grow. So our business model as a city, if I was running it as just a business, would be low volume, higher prices. So the question is, the airport, from a business model standpoint, one aspect of the city's business model is the airport. And I'm just trying to get an idea of where our airport sits in relation to surrounding airports for one specific use, which is the flight schools.
Right.
Because we seem, I suspect, to have a disproportionately high number.
Yeah.
And if we do, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? And I can't answer. I'm just trying to get the numbers right now.
Thanks.
Okay. Arvin, thanks so much. Appreciate your time. All right, now we're gonna get into administration. Who's gonna be who's on the hot seat? Okay, Natalia, welcome, good afternoon. We provided a nice lunch for you to get real comfortable and give us those numbers.
Well, good afternoon. So I will be covering our administration services, so people who sit behind the scenes. So those services consist of the following departments: you, City Commission, City Manager, City Attorney, City Clerk, Finance, Human Resources, and our Business Economic Development, or CRA, actually, and CRA. So this chart shows how what is personnel for each of those departments. And basically, there is not many changes except for City Manager. As you know, we combine people who work in general government, which is our actually, I'm going to get to that slide in a minute. So City Commission 5, City Manager 7.5, City Attorney 3, City Clerk 3.5, Finance, which is my department, 9 and 5, Human Resources 3.5, and Business Economic Development 2. So City Commission, this is you. So we have slight decrease in personnel. As you know, we're trying to basically get rid of Blue Cross Blue Shields. It's very expensive coverage, so that decrease is attributable to that. And we have slight increase in operating expenses. And you will see it basically through all the departments. It's just the way it is. Prices are high and operating expenses, unfortunately, go up for most of the departments. City Manager, again, personnel increase is attributable because this, we had a change. Some positions that were part of general government were added to City Manager. And as you see, we have Capital Project Manager, part-time coordinator for Capital Project Manager, and grant writer, half a position. We also included another position per request. It's basically half of our, the guy who helps here, Phil, I forgot what we called that name. So that's basically our video tech production. City Attorney, not much change there. As you see, very normal change. Total budget for personnel, $438,000. Operating expenses, $47,000. City Clerk increase as well. For personnel, again, as you remember, we have a lot of increases to general employees. Also, we took care of this year, or sorry, I'm struggling. I don't feel good today. Cannot find the words. Anyway, Heather, what is the word we're using? We took care of
for this one,
general,
the
right?
compression.
Compression. That's
we
the
also
word.
have in this budget, you have another half a person from IT.
Yes. My apology. I'm just not here today. Finance, my department. Again, compression. I have several professional positions in my department that should have paid more than we do. So that increase attributable to that. Human Resources, HR Director had requested half a position for HR Generalist, so that's why increases there for personnel. And operating expenses went up. Again, we're trying to do a lot of different training, and basically a lot of expenses that were spread among the departments went to HR Resources. Economic Development, same two position. You see big decrease in operating expenses. This is attributable because the department had brownfield grant, which was $600,000 last year, meaning this year, fiscal 22, which we don't have in fiscal 23, and that's why we have that decrease. So property taxes. That slide I keep showing to you through several presentations now. Again, we're asking for increase in property tax for operating millage, which is from 3.7421 to 3.9641. It's a big increase, we know that, but again, we had difficult negotiations with our unions, and per your request in agreement, those conditions, basically we satisfy them, and as a result, we need money to basically keep up with our agreements. An increase of 0.222 or 5.93% is needed for our budget to be balanced. Otherwise, we don't have any other resources available to pay to our employees per agreements already signed. So as you see, total city millage increase would be 4.08. We have two bond issues, 2005 and 2018, and we have slight decrease there because it will be enough to satisfy our obligations. And just remind you, our budget total for this year is $96.9 million. So this slide shows what is taxpayers in New Smyrna pay. So you, the commission, responsible for 24% of total tax bill. So the rest of taxes go, of course, to school board and Volusia County. Now, this slide shows our proposed millage, which is total, which includes voted debt, 4.2947 for next year. And on the left, you see its value of home. So for basically for every $100,000 of assessed value, taxpayers pay, as you see, for 100,000 would be 429. 200, 859, 300, 1,288, and 400, 1,718. This slide doesn't have it, but just give you some numbers. If we compare bill that we paid this year in fiscal 22 to the bill we're proposing to have, so for every $100,000 assessed value, taxpayer will pay only $16.85. So if your home is $100,000, you pay more this year with our proposed tax millage, about $17. If your home assessed at $200,000, you will to double that. It would be about $33. At $300,000, it would be $50. So basically, these amounts show what we asking taxpayers to pay with our proposed tax millage.
Go ahead.
You had the question?
I'll wait.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
There's something we can get lost in these
Does that include the debt service also?
I cannot hear you.
Does that include the debt service?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
But again, that service was slight decrease. Yeah, it's total.
Yes, thank you.
So I just would like everybody kind of really, I know we're asking a lot, but those dollars, that's what they speak. For every $100,000, we're asking $16 from taxpayers. So this rollback versus final millage. And again, we have this data from 2014. So rollback is below, and that blue line final. Again, as you see from 2014, we usually adopt millage higher than rollback. And again, there is a reason for it. I mean, we're not just taxing austerity, we're also city that consumes goods and services, we pay salaries. It's very difficult for us basically have balanced budget every year. It's a challenge. So that graph shows why we will always, go above rollback. So this is comparison of proposed millage rate for fiscal 23 among municipalities in Volusia County. As you know, we've always been one of the lowest. Last year, we were second from the last. This year, we moved one place up right before DeBerry and Ormond Beach. Again, it's a proposed operating millage. Although we're asking for increase, we're still very much one of the lowest among municipalities of our county.
One question. This gets a little technical, so I wanted to stop and see if anyone had any questions so far right now on what was being discussed. Okay. Go ahead, Randy, if you got a
I
question.
can wait till the end.
Oh, okay. Continue, Natalia. Thank you.
I'm trying. That's it. Next. So our first public hearing meeting is on September 14th, 5:01. I know we have 5 o'clock. By statute, it has to be right after 5. And our second public hearing meeting on September 27 at 6:30. So is any slides you want me to go back?
Okay, Commission. Open it. Oh, jump in there. Anybody has any thoughts?
So on the revenue side, I asked you about unincorporated areas for the utility tax. Or incorporated?
I was not able to get to that. I will. I did not forget.
Okay,
A few things happened since our meeting.
all right. Because we collect from the utilities on the incorporated area. Do we also collect for the unincorporated area that are inside the ISBA? My question to her.
Inside the ISBA, I'm assuming that we do. I haven't checked with Joe,
Okay.
but we will double check on that. But
Thanks.
I'm assuming that if it's within the ISBA, then we will be collecting from it.
I would assume so, but, in the material, it says just the incorporated areas, so.
Okay, so what I want to do right now is I want to have any questions for Natalia on what she went over, and then there's something I want to bring up, which is going to get into the what we control on the commission for the pay of the manager, the attorney, and the clerk. So I want to I have a question for you, Natalia, on what you went over, but I'll wait and see. Does anybody have any further questions on what Natalia has already gone over?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Natalia, it's difficult for me to ask you this question and hopefully not difficult for you to understand me. I had seen our budget, but that was an amended budget prior for this fiscal year. And then the proposed budget was different. It's hard for me to, for lack of a better word, justify or compare a proposed budget to an amended budget. If I could see what a regular budget would have been without amendments, it would be easier to compare. Is that a reasonable question?
No, I understand exactly what you're asking. Do you have a budget book not from this year but year before? That probably would be my best recommendation. Because as you know, we come to you with budget amendment almost every meeting.
Right.
So, we keep track. We have our own way. We have our original, and then each time we come to you with budget amendment, we have, files that show how and for how much and what the reasoning was for amendment. We can share that with you. It will show what's happening, throughout the year.
Yes, and I could find that in the book, correct?
Well, if you look at the book that we gave you a year before, it's the one we adopted. It was, I believe, $86 million. That will give you an idea. But in reality, we require to show and compare with amendment budget. But the best way, again, go the book before, or we can share other files with you.
To look at all. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's my question. I want to put you on the spot because I don't know the answer myself. So the example you've given where at the suggested millage rate increase, an additional home valued at $100,000 will pay another $17 for the year.
Yes. $16.85. Yeah.
So I want to stop short of saying I know this answer to this question, but if your home is homesteaded, it can only go up a maximum of 3%. I believe that is within that $17 in the context that 3% of $17 is 51 cents. So those who have homesteaded properties will not see a $17 increase per 100,000. They are maxed out at 3%. Am I correct or incorrect on that? I don't, and so when you have an increase in the values, I know that you can't go up 3%. But when we increase the millage rate, does Save Our Homes, the homestead exemption, limit that 3% also at that time? I believe it does, but I don't want, I think, I don't know.
When we do our calculation,
Yeah,
when we do our calculations, we take taxable value and we apply millage rate. That's what goes in the budget. So those,
okay,
I
don't
have to
search.
look
I'll
at
tell you
that.
what, and I'll look it up myself because that would be, anyway,
it can go more, but again, this year, our whole taxable value is $5.6 billion. Last year was 4.9. So we have increased or 14% for New Smyrna.
yeah. in
So,
taxable
and that's how
value.
calculations do work.
Right.
So I would say it goes exactly how we calculate. That's what we budget.
Yeah. So I'll look and get some confirmation. I'll call the property appraiser's
Yeah,
office
because
and see if I can
it
get
can go more than 3% in
Yeah.
reality. You know, again, we do it a little bit different. And usually these limitations, the one you're speaking of right now, it's usually handled at property appraisal office level.
That's correct.
They're the one, when they release the numbers to us, to our municipalities for further calculation, the one they, certify at the end of the June, they're the one who really have to abide to those rules. On
Thank
our level, we
Yeah.
already have what we have.
It would seem that they would have to be able to go
I would
up, otherwise
probably,
it would be-
look even at your own tax bill,
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, how much.
My
it
tax
would-
bill ironically hasn't even
Yeah.
gone up, hasn't gone up.
But you see,
over
all
the
these,
years.
all these calculations and all these limitations, they're handled by property appraisal office. They're the one who.
And I'll reach out to them
Mm-hmm.
to give some numbers, get that clarification.
So Save Our Homes property tax cap, it was an amendment to the Constitution. It limits the annual increase in the tax assessment of the homestead property to a maximum of 3% of the prior year's assessment. So
The assessment.
whatever so your assessment value is
Yes.
capped to 3%.
Gotcha. Okay, so that answers that question. It will go up. It's not the 17, the person with the homesteaded property will see the $17.
And I will reaffirm with Larry as well.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
property
great.
appraisal office.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'd like to bring up something that we've discussed previously here on the commission and we plan to bring up, and that is the pay for the 3 employees that the commission is responsible for, which is the manager, the attorney, and the clerk. And I think we talked about this. We were asked to bring back some numbers as to where they are in the pecking order of comparable cities and in the area. So that is what Heather is passing out right now. I have not seen this document, so bear with me. Let me take a look at it and see where we're at.
So about a week and a half ago, the mayor asked me to do some research with our local cities around so that we could compare the salaries. If you start, I don't know which side everybody started on, but I have the city attorneys on the front of mine. Only 3 other cities and then also the county actually employ a city attorney. So that was all that we have to compare to. In that, when you look at where we're at, and this amount that I have listed for our city attorney is the amount that we've agreed to if we use all of the budget calculations that we've done throughout this process with the compression. Our city attorney would go to about 156. You can see that that puts her this next to bottom compared to the rest of our county. So I know when I talked with the mayor, we spoke about that, and he was very interested in looking at something that would look like a better increase for our city attorney. One of the reasons we talked about this is because if Carrie decided for some reason to leave us tomorrow, we'd have to recruit. For me to recruit and find us a city attorney, I'd have to be looking at something much higher than that. So what the mayor and I worked on some numbers, and what we'd like to propose is that we look at raising Carrie to 177 to 180,000 a year to be more in line with what we're looking at with our sister cities. It would put us closer to the Ormond Beach number that we felt like would be more in line, and would also help us if in the event we had to recruit, we would be able to do that.
If I have a law degree, I'm definitely going to Daytona Beach and asking for that job. Holy cow. Okay, so we're talking about city attorney right now, the 177 to 180 range. Okay.
So just to clarify real quick, Vice Mayor, when we did the compression study, when we set our pay grades that we set for the entire city, we set those based on the 31.2 per year, and then it did a 5% increase in between each of our pay grades. So that gave us an increase where it increased our pay grades, and it did mean an increase for all of our employees. But what we did was, remember, we did a minimum of 3% for everyone, and Carrie's salary fell within that. So where she was paid before, where we go to in our new pay grade scale, meant that she got the 3% increase. So if we stay with what we're getting, she would get a 3% increase. If we look at this change, just so you're aware, the 177 would be a 17% increase. If we went to 180, it would be a 19% increase.
Thank you. So I want to say that I recall, and I sat in on the negotiations for Carrie's first contract. We tasked the mayor at the time, which was Jim Hathaway, to do the negotiations. And I sat in as it was a public meeting. And I do recall the pay that she started at. What was brought up on the city's side is that she was a first-time city attorney. I would say that she was paid on the lower end when we brought her in. We had some kind of adjustment that occurred. Carrie may be able to clarify that at some point, but it wasn't much. So the mayor's expressed concern over the gap in pay from where she's being paid to her peers. I also share those same concerns. And I also will say that I think Carrie has done a absolutely phenomenal job. And I'm not throwing any former city attorneys under the bus, but I do have the ability to compare the two. And I will tell you that the kind of lawyering that I get from Carrie is exceptional, and her openness to discuss with you and deal with issues is pretty much a 180-degree difference from what my experience was in the past. I'm getting that both from the attorney and the assistant attorney. I'm very happy, very impressed with what my experience has been with the city attorney. So the 177 is a 17%?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm comfortable in that range, 177 to 180, $3,000 difference. What is the commission's thoughts?
Vice Mayor,
comments?
if I may,
Yes.
if I may real quick, just to kind of add on to what you said, also the amount of work that our city attorney's staff handles. You know, the next closest to us is Ormond Beach. We only have about 50 employees less, and they're the next closest in far as population. And I would tell you, I didn't add it on this sheet for you, but I can tell you that the amount of staff that we have versus the amount of staff that Ormond has is much greater. So Carrie and her staff overall are handling much more items, many more things for our city than our next closest city does.
And Ormond used to laugh at us because of all the issues that we have with growth and all the requirements that we deal with. There was they would get a kick out of it and how much work, and a lot of, as we point out, we're not a population of 25,000. The police and fire have to deal with a tremendous increase in population with people coming in some ways very similar to the fact that with the growth demands for New Smyrna and the fact that everybody wants to be here, Makes it a very challenging and difficult job. Again, not your typical small city with a population of 25,000. Let me ask you a question. Do we have the manager, the attorney, and the clerk on this? Just, is it best that we go one by one? We just ended up on the attorney first, and I'm comfortable with that. Everyone okay with the way we're moving into this?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I got a question.
Sure.
Heather, is the 17% increase on top of the 3%?
No, that would be her total increase. Instead of 3%, it would be 17%.
Thank you.
So I would tend to agree with everything that you said. I've been certainly happy with the advice that the city attorney has given us. I think she's very competent. She's gone ahead and got her certifications, which she originally didn't have when we initially hired her. But I also note that on this handout that everybody above us also has a deputy city attorney, where we don't have that extra position. So like Heather said, we have 2 people doing the work of 3 people in the other cities. So I'm comfortable with setting that new salary range at 177 going forward.
Mike, jump in.
This is a tough one. Has nothing to do with the ability, as far as I'm concerned. It's just that I'm not going to approve an increase in the millage rate. And I have a hard time doing a pretty good-sized chunk increase. Has nothing to do with the ability in the work product, as Carrie knows, because I've spoke to her a number of times about it. I would like to hear what we're proposing for the other 2 people before I really commit to that.
Jake, any thoughts?
Well, the thought is to even give you a consensus now, since the mayor's not here, we cannot vote on it. I do think it's a very high percentage only in the fact, for the fact that we're asking the people to have their taxes raised, and the percentages we're giving to fellow employees comes nowhere near 17%. So that's where I have a little heartburn, unfortunately. So that would lead me to take it under advisement for that one. And we still have time to think about it and discuss it some more, hopefully.
Okay, one question I have is, where are these increases in the budget under our current millage? That was the one, I'm not sure where we're at with that.
So because we prepared everything before the mayor asked for this information, these increases are not in the budget at this time. So in that proposed millage increase would not be these, it would be their 3% that were originally proposed.
Okay, so if
So
we
we'd
move
have to
forward,
add
where
these.
would we get that money from?
We'd have to add these to the budget, and then Natalia would have to work new numbers for you.
Okay, all right.
So
So we did the city attorney, we've talked about the city attorney. I think everyone wants to continue discussion. Let's go to the city manager.
City manager. So the city manager is on the back of that page. I got all of our local areas except for 2 were the only ones that didn't give me at least what their proposed changes for 10-1 are. And when you look at all of our cities, our local cities that have city managers, it puts our city manager at 4th from the bottom. You can see there's a big grouping from Deltona down to New Smyrna of all paying about the same amounts. But again, I would caution that if we needed to, as our city and everything that we handle, if Khalid decided to end his term with us tomorrow and we had to go out and recruit, I would definitely be looking closer to the DeLand and DeBerry probably very close to the Ormond numbers to be able to bring someone in as a qualified city manager to be able to handle what he handles with us.
Yeah, I see, and this is not inconsistent with what I've been talking about for years. And one of the things that we've had a problem with hiring people, we're just not competing. I'm not going to bring up specific people and circumstances, but there are a number of those where we're just underpaid and can't compete. We lose good people, and then when we try to hire and find good people for positions, we again can't compete. So, I think we need to ask ourselves, how long are we going to kick this can down the road? What is our expectation, for our residents' expectation to have a high-performing manager, and staff, employees, everybody. So, the attitude is, again, and I've said this many times, historically, you didn't get taxed much, but you didn't get anything. That ship has sailed. We're not the same city we were 40, 50 years ago, and it's a very expensive town to live in. If we're going to compete for good employees, we have to compete. I mean, I'd like anybody to raise your hand if you tell me you're going to take a 20%, $20,000, $30,000 pay cut just to come here to say you work in New Smyrna. I wouldn't do it. So, it's a tough decision, guys. It's not easy. But the longer we delay this, the worse it gets.
And Vice Mayor, if I could, to go along with that, when we set our pay scales, our city manager is our leader, and he's where we set our base. So wherever his pay lands, that sets kind of the tone of what I bring to you for the rest of the pays within our city. And this past couple years have been a little bit different, where we've talked about minimums because of the things that have come down from the federal government and what the voters have asked for with the $15 an hour minimum. So we've worked on minimums and worked our way up. What we're seeing now is that especially private companies, which, as I've said to you before, we're competing with more than we ever have in the history of public government. We're competing with those, and that sets it. So when we set our city manager's pay, I can't bring in a police chief, I can't bring in a fire chief, I can't bring in a development services director, I can't bring in any of those directors that I need to fill at any higher than he's making. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't look good in the optics. And so what we're finding is when I set that limit, then I'm having to squish everybody else in, and I'm creating more and more of that compression that I've talked to you about since I got here 2 years ago. Yeah. And so when I look at this from that standpoint of just an HR and recruiting and the positions that we're looking at, I need a bigger gap. I need that space to be able to do that, and increasing the city manager's salary would be that first step for HR and being able to set those other limits. And if I can, the mayor and I had some discussions on college salary also. And what we would like to recommend is that we raise college to at least $185,000. That again puts us right in that range of being close to Ormond Beach, which I think has been one of our bigger competitors. Even when I worked at Ormond Beach, New Smyrna was our competitor. So I was able to look at that, and that's always kind of been a standard for me too, is to look at New Smyrna. What's New Smyrna doing? I looked when I was in Ormond, now I'm in New Smyrna looking to see what does Ormond do. And so getting us closer and closer to that rate, I think, is something that we should consider.
And ironically, that happens to be the city with someone we lost who we wish we hadn't, went to Ormond for much more pay.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and throw these out right now. It's funny, we look at 180 for city manager, and we're still lower than Ormond, DeBerry, and DeLand. We look at 177 for the attorney, and again, we're still lower than Ormond by $5,000 roughly. So I can certainly support 180 for the manager, and I would even be willing to go up another 1,000 or two. And Randy threw out 177 for the attorney, and I would be willing to go up, so yeah. So give me a second, because first time I'm seeing this, I'm trying to compare apples to apples. Okay. So I propose, I would like to see some, 179 for the attorney, and I would like to see 183 for the manager. That's where I'm willing to go with this. And it's not an issue of can we afford it, it's the question of whether or not we're going to be willing to pay our employees what they deserve and what the rate is. Or do we continue to take less money and expect top quality service from our staff? So that's my feelings about it. And absolutely, jump in there.
Vice Mayor, did you say from 177 for the attorney to 179?
Yeah, I would go up to 179 for the attorney, 183 for the
And 183 for the manager.
and that would put the manager right in line with DeLand and DeBerry.
Right.
One question before we get going. Where did you say, where are we at with the clerk?
With, I haven't yet, I can go over it
Okay,
real quick if
no,
you'd
that's
like.
fine. I didn't see it here, and I just didn't know if I missed something. Well, okay, so we're not making a decision today. We're not making a motion today. There's no action in this. So all I'm saying is I would go to 179 and 182, 183 for the manager, and 179 for the attorney. That's my maximum numbers.
Did we miss our clerk?
Yeah, well, we're going to get to that. I think we're just dealing with the manager and attorney right now.
I want to hear all three.
Okay, if we're ready to move on, we can go ahead and hear the clerk.
Okay. I didn't share the information with the clerk for you, but I'll let you know really quick. If you remember when we did our compression study, we actually had an increase in the pay grade that we set for our city clerk. And with that, that automatically raised Kelly's rate. And so what that meant was that she actually already is receiving a 27% increase with just the compression study that we did. So Kelly's rate, I don't know if you want me to share actual numbers and details, but the city clerk's rate will go from 76.6 to 97.9. So that's a 27% increase, and that's just from the pay grades that we set. So when the mayor and I discussed this, and putting her at that puts her the fifth highest from the top, with Ormond, DeLand, Daytona Beach Shores, and Daytona Beach, the only that are higher than her in our county of the ones that I got the information on.
Okay, well.
So when the mayor and I spoke, we felt like that was a very good increase. He felt like that would put Kelly in line with the rest of our county. He felt like it was very, very good as far as that goes. And so there was no additional information that he wanted to, or any additional increase that he wanted to consider at that time. If there's anything you'd like to consider, I can of course get that information. We can look at that and I can give you more details.
Mike, jump in there. Go ahead.
I seem to remember that Kelly sort of went to the next plateau in certifications during the year. Has that been taken into account, and do her certifications now compare with those of other towns?
Yes, yes.
And what are they?
I don't have the details with me. Kelly might be able to answer that for you if she has them. But what we did was we compared the certifications, and that was why we decided to make that increase to the pay grade and why the pay grade had such
Well, let's just
an
have
increase.
those numbers available at the next budget meeting. I don't want Kelly to comment on her own, create some awkwardness. She doesn't need to comment on her own increase right now on a whim. So
I'll get
yeah.
that information.
When next meeting, on the next budget meeting, which is what, the 14th? 15th. 14th, yeah. So, yeah, have that comparison so we can take a look at that. Okay,
Nancy,
so. go ahead.
you made a significant change in the classification range.
Yes.
Did
Yes.
that take into account her particular change in certifications? Or was that just in general?
It took into account when we compared the certifications to the other cities and where their pay ranges were. We took that into consideration when we created our pay ranges and then where we placed the city clerk in those ranges.
I would like you to share that information also, not now, with our other two separately paid employees. There's no real, there's associations and things like that, but there are no particular job requirements, except I know there is one for the city attorneys.
Not required, that's a extra qualification I happen to have that Daytona does not have. I know that much, and I'm not sure that Randy has or not.
I'm not
I
sure.
I would like to know that information for all three positions.
Okay.
Okay, so any other comments on the three employees' wages? Okay, I will say this, in my time on this commission, I have never been asked by any three of these people for a raise. When I bring them up, usually they're very modest. Their jobs are political to some more than others. And I think there's a lot of fear that if they come forward, it can be used against them. So I think it is very much our responsibility to make sure that our department heads, the city manager, the attorney, and the clerk are paid competitive wages and not taken advantage of. So that's where I'm at. That's how I feel about it. I have no problem with having to bite the bullet on the budget to bring them up to where they should be paid. And I'm like that with all the employees that we have. We need to work on making sure that we stay competitive.
Last comment on that is the budget that we have been presented with is based on 3%, so these would be higher. Gotta find some money somewhere. We're not gonna raise the millage rate. We can't raise it. So I want to know where the changes would come in.
Yeah. Okay, any comments on this? Okay, hearing no further comments, have we done the administrative? Is Natalia done, or?
Yes, we are.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. So that was the administrative portion of the budget. And we have a break, then go into capital projects. Are we good with just go ahead and moving forward into capital projects?
Yes.
Or do we want a break? If no one needs a break, let's go ahead and move forward into capital projects. Todd, how are you? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon with you too. Kelly, do you have the presentation? Do you want me to wait for Michael and Jake to get back?
No, go ahead. They can hear.
Okay. So I did a presentation on the capital improvement projects. These are all basically what is part of the current budget, which is in the current fiscal 23 new budget year. This is just an overview of all of the capital improvement projects. Then I broke them down by category and presented slides for each one of those capital improvement projects. So the first one that we're going to go over is the golf course. There's a golf course maintenance building that was existing project that had an original budget of $29,000. The steel building that is proposed is $22,955. There's an additional concrete slab and electrical that will need to be put in place in order to construct the steel building. So there's an additional $12,000 that's going to be requested that will come out of the general fund that will take care of the concrete slab and the electrical that will be required for that steel building. Next is the stormwater project within the city. We have a hazard mitigation grant program for elevation of 6 flood-prone homes. The budget, it's an existing project. The proposed budget is $1,519,636. The next project within the stormwater projects are the North Atlantic Drainage Project. And the request for that is, and it's new, is $1,675,000. The final project within the stormwater budget is the North Beach Master Plan, and that is going to be a $500,000 request. Total for the stormwater for 22-23 will be $3,694,636. And if you want, we can, if you have questions for each one of these slides, we can try to answer those then, or we can go back
Well,
through.
I'm going to have them, generally speaking, take notes just to hold their questions until you're done.
No problem.
That way, we don't just get too bogged down.
Sounds good. The next is airport. There's a request for various bipartisan infrastructure law projects. There is a new project. It's funding from FAA. It's $610,602. There's hangar improvements requested for T Hangar F rehab. This is an existing ongoing project. It's FDOT funding, $400,000. Building and facility improvements. This is for the fuel farm, existing. It's FDOT funding, $280,000. Taxiway improvements for Taxiway Alpha. It's existing. It's FAA and FDOT, and it's $400,000. Total request is for $1,690,602. The next are capital improvement projects throughout the city. The first one is AOB parking, which is temporary boat and trailer parking on the AOB site. This would also be combined with the North Causeway boat ramp improvements. And combined, it would be $594,000 total. Those are coming from general fund and fine grant. The next would be the Turnbull Creek Management Plan. And that is for a current project that we have in design is for an observation platform at Turnbull Creek. We're requesting $126,000 for construction for that project. The next project is Roco Pier. That's pier replacement at Roco Park. It's an existing project. It would be coming out of general fund and FEMA grant money. And construction costs for that would be $260,000. The next would be the Barracuda Bridge, and this is an existing project, Barracuda Bridge replacement. This is coming out of line of credit. It was $2,238,916. The next would be Barracuda Boulevard. This is construction from bridge to North Causeway. It's existing. General fund, it would be $241,874. Corbin Park stormwater improvements. This would be ARPA, it would be $1.5 million. There's historic West Side stormwater improvements. It's existing, it would be ARPA funds, $1.5 million. Turnbull dredging, which would be dredging in Turnbull Creek. It's a new project. Come out of general funds, it would be $500,000. Road resurfacing in general throughout the city for 2023. It's new. The ARPA funds, $2.5 million. Fire Station 53. This is a building addition for Station 53. That existing.
Hey, Todd, let me just jump in here because I see some couple of Vice Mayor, just to make a correction. So if you look at the list, if you go back, Todd, well, no, it's still on the top one where it talks about temporary boat and trailer parking at AOB site. That should be between fine and parking funds. The other one that kind of caught my attention is the dredging at Turnbull Creek. That would be coming from stormwater fund. So these these are the two that I just want to make some corrections on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can I,
Okay.
while you're,
Go ahead.
while you're there, I thought the observation deck from the Turnbull Creek Management Plan was coming out of the Turnbull Creek.
Yeah,
Bond.
if you recall, the bond didn't have any funding to be spent on the management. That's why we said that it's going to be coming from either the parks impact fees or from general fund.
But I thought we were going to use the 3 million that we got back from the state for that.
Yeah, and we could, I mean, but the actual bond, it has to be used for the acquisition of the property. But we could use the $3 million that we have, that we received from the state.
Okay.
I do agree with that also. That's what I was expecting.
Okay. Next on the list would be pickleball at Page Park. It's a new project. The request was for $500,000. The next would be a skate park expansion, airport property, come out of general fund, ECHO grant, and ARPA. It's $500,000. There's a track resurfacing request at the sports complex, and that I have on there ARPA, but yes, I believe that's ARPA funding still. That's $500,000. And then there is a sidewalk replacement. It's a CDBG grant request for Roanoke Lane to Mary Avenue intersection. And it would be a new project, and that would be $93,614. So the total capital improvement projects in the 302 fund would be $11,554,404. The next would be capital improvements in the 303 fund. There are 3 sidewalk projects, 7th Street, which would be funded by the current bond, $130,000. South Street, which would be also underneath the bond, would be $350,000. And then Quay Assisi would be also a bond fund. It would be $100,000. And that was over by the Barracuda Bridge projects.
And just as a side note, Vice Mayor, for the 7th Street sidewalk and the South Street sidewalk, we just had the bid opening, and it'll be presented to the commission on September the 13th for approving the bids.
Great.
So moving forward with that one.
Long time in coming. Thank you.
The next would be for City Marina, currently under design. It's for the construction of the repairs. That would come out of the Marina Fund. That would be for $284,000. With that, the total capital outlay for all of the categories would be $17,815,642.
Thank you, Todd.
That's it.
Concludes? Okay. So, discussion, comments. Go ahead.
Back to the airport, that $1.6 million, is that our cost, or that's our 20%? Or is that the total cost of all the projects?
My understanding is that this is the total cost of the projects. I do not have the breakdown between if it's a match or not. I can get that for you.
No, the 1.6 is the total cost of the project, so it would be the 80/20. So.
Okay.
Okay. The pickleball courts, are we able to fund that out of the park impact fee money?
I think we had it in the ARPA fund, if you recall, so
Okay.
I don't think we have $500,000 in the impact fees that I recall.
Okay, because on here it says general fund, so.
But if there is money and the commission wanted to use the impact fees, I think we could do that. But the initial suggestion was in the ARPA fund that I had the list.
ARPA, yeah, but on the slide it says general fund, so that's why I asked.
Yeah. Maybe that's the other one I was looking for, so I think there's 3 of them. That,
Okay. I'll provide some clarification on that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it does say on this one, general fund, and
It
that should
does
be
on general
ARPA.
fund, but yeah.
That should be ARPA.
Okay.
And I don't see anything on the Fifth Street Bridge.
On which one?
Fifth Street, so we push that off?
No, we
Should be
did
on the
not.
list.
So, yeah, that's current project. I don't have that on here, but I can add that, sorry.
Okay.
I think we're very close on the Fifth Street Bridge. That was the temporary bridge, that was the issue with DOT, because I was talking to Commissioner Clothy just before the session. They normally use the bridge, but they don't lease it out. So we had probably a couple of months just dealing with the legal issues with them. So finally, I think we got it to the point where I think we're ready to be able to include that in our bid spec and bid it out.
Okay. I'll talk to you later.
Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add, we have in fiscal 22, we have several $1 million for Fifth Bridge, which we did not spend, just like what city manager said.
Okay.
And plus financing for that should not be a problem, because if you remember, we have a note for it, a loan, which we're requesting every month. This is really truly new money for fiscal 23. No additional money needed for Fifth Bridge because we're behind.
Okay.
And money in 22 will be rolled forward.
But it seems like none of our projects ever come in under what we budget them for. So.
Yeah. That's granted if it comes on the same, at the estimated value, but I think we expect it to be a little bit higher, so.
Yeah, I mean, the fuel tank is double what we expected at the airport, so.
Yeah.
A question, sorry, Natalia, or maybe, sir, you could answer the question. Commissioner Hartman asked about the terminal, I think you asked about the observation platform. So we do not have to have that expense? It should come from the monies that were allotted for the Turnbull Creek?
Yeah, we could.
We do not have to spend the 126 for the platform?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood the question.
The
James.
platform,
the
the
question-
observation at the Turnbull Creek property, that should be coming from, we could use the money out of the bond or out of the grant that we received from the state.
Yeah, we'll look into that and I'll get clarification.
Do we, Khalid or Natalia, can we use reserves for any of the funding of these capital projects?
Can we use reserve? Sure, you could, the commission has the ability to do whatever they want as long as it's over the 25% that we have in the reserve. Yeah, you could.
And would that reduce, maybe a dumb question, but would that reduce our having to raise millage?
If you're using those reserve for a project that it's being funded by the general fund, yes, it would. Now, how much, it depends on how much is the project and how much do you use, but it does, if it's a general fund.
Yeah.
Now, the airports, it's a special fund, so it's not a general fund.
I asked because I had asked, or mentioned before, we have this, we're flush all of a sudden because of ARPA, and the property values are so high that it seems we have more money coming in. That's why I wondered why we have to raise the millage, my initial question was keep the millage as it was
Well, we
prior.
spent the ARPA money,
All of
including
it?
on, well, we've allocated it, including on wages or bonuses. So what you're asking is, can we take the ARPA money and reduce the taxes by that amount? I think that's what you're saying.
In essence, yes.
I mean, late, I mean, quite honestly, we're pretty late to do that. We've talked for months on how we're gonna spend that money. So, I mean, we can pull the rug out from under everything and start over, but that's a big task.
Then the question is there leftover ARPA money that could help offset?
So is there any ARPA money we haven't allocated yet? Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay. So let them, having a sidebar over there. Commissioner Sachs has a question for Finance and Manager. Go ahead.
Are there any ARPA monies left over that we could use to fund anything in the city, particularly capital projects, that would offset an increase in millage?
Well, if you remember when city manager presented you with the list, which we're looking at now, you approved it. So it's really would be up to the commission if you want to make any changes, the way I'll look at that.
So the question, I think, is, has any ARPA money not been allocated yet? Or have we went ahead and
It all
allocated?
has been allocated because we got around $14 million. And again, not like we started any of those projects, not many. So we basically have a plan which you approved and we go by it. If you want to make any changes, in my opinion, you certainly can. At this point of time, I think we only have about 5 projects.
Yeah, we're down to the 11th hour, so we'd have to.
It's up to your
That would be pulling the rug
decision.
out, but.
And again, list we have right there, and that's the way I'll look at that. But of course, it will be up to you and city manager.
That's a hard question, but I had to ask.
But it's Commissioner Sachs, we had the list, the commission has approved the list, but if you wanted to make any changes on the list as a commission, I think you could do that, but, because right now we have not, I think it's just a couple of projects that we have spent some of the ARPA fund on them, such as the historic West Side master plan, drainage master plan, and also the Coben Park, and some of the pumping. But some of the other ones, we have not spent the money yet because it's in this budget, so we would not be able to do it until October 1st. But if you want to go back and revisit the list, you obviously could do that.
Thank you.
Mike, you have any comments?
Yes, I do. First thing we got to do is we got to straighten out this list as to where the funding comes from, because it's really kind of hard to make a decision based on $500,000 going here and $500,000 going there. Fix that, because it appears to me that if we're going to make any changes, this is where our changes are going to have to come from projects we're going to have to either knock off this list or reallocate. I would also like include on there, we got a number of projects we simply haven't done and we've gotten money for, such as the old fort restoration,
Correct. Existing ongoing projects, yes, sir.
We received no bids, correct? On the
We did
okay,
receive
but
no bids
they
on,
belong
yeah.
on the list, whether we did them or we didn't. They got to go into our consideration. We've got the women's club where we're going to be looking for more money and we don't have any more money. So I would like to know what's been appropriated from the past and not spent on these capital projects. If they're going nowhere, they've been around for a long time, either because we haven't had the money or we just simply haven't put the things out to bid. Maybe that's where we can recoup some money. If we find we have a project that we don't want anymore, that would certainly help out. Why continue to fund it again? So I really can't do anything at this particular point. I want to cut the millage rate down, but this doesn't help me. So I need more.
Understood. You'd like to see a list of ongoing projects so you compare it with any new projects that are going, so you see a full picture of the total.
A full accurate picture.
Yes, sir. Understood.
So that's it.
That would be for all of us.
I understand. Yes, sir.
Right, thanks. A quick question on the floating dock and pavilion. Colin,
which one?
the floating dock and pavilion for the North Causeway boat ramp.
For the AOV.
Is that our match to the fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And it's actually broken into two separate projects. So there's a floating dock that is affiliated with the boat ramps independently of the pavilions and kayak lodges that are separate with another set of floating docks that are being proposed. And they're listed as two separate requests to fund so that they can, if they don't want to fund the whole project as a whole, they can fund part of it. So hopefully they'll at least see eye to eye with funding part of it.
On that particular issue, when do we expect to hear from
In
Fine?
September.
Of this year, I hope?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's their typical timeframes, is around September. They give out the list that they're approving.
Yeah, also, we had approved hate to call it temporary, but some intermediate improvements to the parking area out there. I know we went out to bid, and hopefully they misunderstood what we wanted to do. And I would like to have an update at some point where we stand with that and whether we could put that money back in the budget if we're not going to use it. It was a severe problem over there with boat parking, boat trailer parking, but since we increased the fines, the problem has gone away. So maybe we don't have to spend that money.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, I think this wraps up administration. And, go ahead.
I had one other for Heather.
Thank you.
You have other current charges, miscellaneous HR line?
Yes.
$14,000?
Yes, so Natalia and I went through that, and we actually found that I put something in two places, so that 14,000 will come out.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
you're welcome.
Okay, second time. Any further comments?
Check on my little sticky notes.
That's right, that's right. Any other sticky notes in anybody's paperwork? Okay, seeing none. Colin?
Are
Yes,
you
sir.
gonna adjourn the meeting?
No, we're gonna go to commission comments and continue the conversation. We're just compartmentalizing it under a different heading.
Make sure that's I need to get some direction. That's
Yes. So I'm just going to make sure that administration and everybody has been dismissed, and really we're going to continue the same discussion. So with that said, we're commission comments. Let me go ahead, College, start off by saying what you need from us at this point.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the commission. I mean, this has been a long process, and as you know, we start on the budgets in January. This is probably one of the toughest budgets that I had to deal with since I've been here. Obviously, the increase in the millage, it doesn't go well with anybody. However, having the negotiation with the three unions, I think it made it difficult for us to come up to an agreement. When we did, that required for us to have some planning for the next 3 years. So having the increase in the millage for this year, it's not anything popular in any of the staff, but we had to do it in order to meet the agreement that we had with the unions. So saying that, if the commission wishes for us to do anything with the budget, I think I need to get a clear direction at this meeting. So I could go back to the department heads and start doing anything that I had to cut in order to come back on the 14th with the millage that you be able to at least be okay with and approve. But without that, I've heard a lot of comments during the discussion, but I think I need to get that as a consensus from the commission of where do you want to go with the millage, or where do you want to go with the budgets in terms of the cuts and so forth. With that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Colin. I think that, let me say this, the city attorney is looking for direction from us at this time. This is the meat and potatoes. It's easy to say, city manager, cut the budget. I would prefer us to tell them how much we want it to get cut and then identify projects that we would like cut. He's absolutely right when he says, discussions with the unions, we knew we were gonna have to increase the millage rate. When do we bite the bullet and make this transition and step up to where we need to be financially in the city? I can tell you now, if it doesn't happen now, it surely does not happen when the economy starts tanking and ad valorem tax revenue starts dropping. We're still trying to fill positions from the last time that happened. We're still trying to find good people from the last time that happened. So if it's not now, when? The economy's been rolling along and we have not been taking all of the ad valorem tax increase we can. We have not increased the millage at all. And we can see where we are in pay. We dealt with the unions, we dealt with the city employees, and now we're looking at our attorney and manager, our 20 to 30,000, what their former managers are and attorneys in comparable cities in the area. So if not now, when? Certainly not going to happen when the economy's tanking. And I would ask that we be as detailed as possible when telling staff where we make these cuts. At least give them a strong direction. We're either going to accept it where it's at or it's not. So, you know my feeling. I want to move forward. I want to move forward with what we've discussed. I want to get our people paid. I want to take advantage of our employees. We got good employees. And we got to pay the piper sometime. I think I hear the crickets out early. It's not even dusk and I can hear the crickets. Go ahead, feel free. Anyone jump in there.
I've made myself very clear for months as to what I would like to see. If you're looking for a specific location, it's not going to come from salaries. That's understood.
I'm sorry, it's not what? I didn't hear that.
Any cuts are not going to come from salaries. I made that point clear when I agreed with all these various union contracts that I do support them. And I knew what it would do to the budget. But we're going to have to take money from somewhere. And some of the projects we're talking about, the fire chief came up with one for his division, a pretty good sized chunk of money.
What was that?
Could have been a tank, I'm not sure. I think it was replacing fuel tank for the emergency generator. Maybe that's something that could be taken off. You know I'm not in favor of the building behind the firehouse. That's going to lead, if we purchase it, that's going to lead to a big cost going into the future. We have money set aside or plan to set aside for improvements to that. Maybe that doesn't have to be this year. I'm not thrilled with that property anyhow, but I think the costs can be very high. Renovating that building is going to be a lot of money. Last time I was there, I saw a tree coming through the roof. There's nothing of value in that structure at all. And the septic system is raised in the front, so there's a lot of costs with that. Some of our replacement vehicles, we should, maybe we'll have to slow down a little bit on replacing some of them. It's going to be big ticket items we have to take out. Maybe when you're talking about a pickleball court, that's the latest rage. Maybe we should appropriate money to do planning for it as opposed to paying for it in full. That way we can apply for future grants for that. We weren't very lucky in our ECHO grant requests this year. we should look into why we didn't get approval on a lot of those things. I know there was a lot of competition out there, which means that maybe next year they'll say, gee, we kind of forgot New Smyrna. Maybe we'll get better luck next year on some of these. But funding in this year's budget is going to come from the capital improvements or some of the maintenance items that maybe we can put off. So that's where I would like the recommendations to come from. Everybody knows what I want for a result, whether you can reach it or not. I don't know. I hope you make a really good effort at it. And then my alternative is just simply vote no and see where it goes.
And I appreciate that, Commissioner Kalodi. However, these are, it's a one-time expense that when you take out of the capital. But that expense reoccur a year after year because it is built into the union contract. So if it just was a matter of just one-time item, that would have been a lot easier. So it has to come from somewhere on an expense that it's an occurring expense. So.
I realize that that expense is going to come along at some point. But as I said in the very beginning, I'm concerned about what people have to pay out of their pockets. They're getting hit by increases that are beyond our control. Inflationary increases. God only knows what taxes are coming from the federal government. And if we can put off some of these increases for a year, maybe two, it would spread out the impact on the general public who pays the taxes. And we will not suffer. If we don't replace that, I keep using the same example, the tank for emergency generator. If we pay for it next year, so be it. Expense is going to be there. The generator is going to keep working for a year, and the people don't have to pay for it now. So that's my philosophy on where we should take the budget this year.
All right.
And if I may, just on that specific tank, the issue is with the safety. The tank sits on a pedestal, and the pedestal is where the problem is. It's a safety issue. Am I correct, Chief?
Yeah, not to get mired in specifics, but yeah, the actual inner lining of the tank is failing, so you get fuel contamination and things like that. I don't know what the longevity of that tank is as it sits today. The generator does sit on top like it is a structural supporting member, but the true issue is that the tank lining is deteriorating to the point that it's contaminating the fuel. So.
Okay. I'm not picking on the fire department. You can look upon it that you made a really good proposal and gave details.
Jake?
Yes, it's tough, Vice Mayor. You know, the priority divisions, departments that work for the city, public safety, maintenance operations, I believe they are trying to sharpen their pencils. And I hate to use that phrase a lot, but that's basically what I'm trying to get us to do. Some of the capital projects, some of them are quality of life projects, pickleball, skate park, things like that. I would love to see them go forward. If we could possibly reduce the size and scope of those projects, that might help our bottom line. Other ways, I'd have to ruminate on it, but I just think I would love for us to not raise the millage, even though it doesn't seem to be a great increase in taxes. It's a really hard time for people out there, and I feel like, again, the city is wealthier than its constituents for a large part. Everything's going up. The raises that we're going to give our employees are already eaten up by inflation. So, you know, we should take care of them. And again, that's part, yes, it was unions and non-union labor is going to get a good bump. But maybe we can find things to cut again in those capital projects. and elsewhere. There's still time, I think, to get us there.
So I have a couple of thoughts. The first one that I think one of the other commissioners brought up is if we're overfunded in the reserve account, then we could use that money and place it back into the general fund to pay for some of these projects that we're budgeted for. We're only required by ordinance to have 25%. So if we truly are overfunded, I know that we're robbing Peter to play Paul at the end of the hurricane season, but that certainly would be one way to address some of the budget issues. The other is the bank charges that we pay. Right now, we're currently paying for people to use their credit card, and not necessarily all those people are taxpayers and citizens of New Smyrna Beach. You know, we're paying the 3% for them to use their credit card. I think those costs could be passed on to them. I think that we should look into paying a convenience fee if you're using a credit card to do business in New Smyrna Beach. Everybody else does it. You know, my lawn care service, I have to pay them a 3% premium if I want to use my credit card. Same thing everywhere else you go. So I think those are ways to look at increasing revenues that, granted, it's not going to be a lot of money, but it's going to be a way to increase some of those revenues, especially for those non-taxpayers. Everybody that comes over here and parks in the parking garage from Orlando and Winter Park, use their credit card. Let them pay for it. We talked about raising parking fees, but we're restricted by state statute. But if we tack on a convenience fee for using credit cards, they're paying for it. It's not coming out of our pocket. It's not, the taxpayers aren't paying for it. The other thing that I'll briefly touch on, because I won't be here at the next meeting. I know that it's going to be the next meeting is the one where you're actually going to set the budget, has to go forward. With regards to the two contract employees, the city manager and the city attorney. I agree with what the numbers you're looking at. I agree that it's truly needed and deserved. But we could also look at half in October and the other half on their anniversary date in February. I think college is February, right? Your anniversary date for your contract? Sometime. You know, it gets them to the end, but it's going to save a few bucks till we get there. So there's ways to look at stuff like that. I think there are things in the budget. I certainly don't understand why a vehicle should be at least 10 years old or 100,000 miles before we start replacing them. I don't know that that the maintenance costs are that high on some of them. And one or two of those pickup trucks could be usable for another year or so. So I think we need to look at that. I would specifically ask the fleet manager to look at everything in the inventory and see where we are. If we have an abundance of vehicles that are all the same age, Chief says he's got quite a few of them that are really old. We should project those costs going forward. I'm a big fan of the fleet management funding thing, where you lease a vehicle, you pay for it in advance, and then every 10th year, every 100,000, you replace it, you already have the money in the fund. It also gives you kind of another little reserve fund that you can use in case of emergencies. But a vehicle, some kind of a vehicle planning fund, I think, is something that we should look at going forward, so that we are not every year coming up with the same problem. If we're looking at, he's got 9 vehicles he's looking for this year. He can't even get the 4 that he had already purchased and we agreed to purchase. So I think we seriously need to kind of look at that and how we fund that program, so that in the event that we get something where we can save a few bucks on purchases or put them off, for another month or two, we certainly should look at that. But those are my thoughts on that. I would like to see the millage lower than what we currently agreed to. I'm not at all supporting going back to the current millage rate, especially not rollback. But, if we can get that, I think we're at 4.08% above last year. So if we can get around 4% or something like that, that would make me much happier, feel much better. And I think that can be done with some forward thinking and some creative ways to do some things going forward.
And Commissioner Hartman, talking about the vehicles, I think you mentioned that right now it's difficult to get those vehicles, and so I was talking to David yesterday in terms of leasing some of these vehicles. He's looking at Enterprise, and they have some vehicles available that we could lease. And the program that they have, they could buy our current existing vehicles. So somehow I think and we have to look at it closely, but it looks like whatever they could buy the vehicles actually paid for probably, I think probably the first year of leasing these vehicles. And you could lease them 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. So we might have to go back that route because those vehicles are not available anyway, but they got them on their lots. So that's something we'll be looking into.
Okay. And you remind me of something that Chris has a leased vehicle in his budget proposal, yet, we have a vehicle that for commission use that sits there unused. We're not using it that much. I think those things need to kind of take a serious look at as to whether we truly need to lease that vehicle, or is there something else in the fleet that we can use, that they can use, or create a mileage reimbursement. If they're using their own vehicles for city business, then they should be reimbursed for mileage.
Right now, that's what we have
Yeah.
for them. We have that they get reimbursed for the mileage they use in their vehicle. But again, it's the amount of you pay per mile. It's sometimes it's not worth on the use of their vehicle. So, but we'll look into. The idea was to have if they use it and we have the commission the same vehicle. Sometimes the commission they want to go somewhere and the vehicle is not ready. So it creates some issues in the past. But we'll look into it.
That's all I got.
Okay. We had to bite the bullet, and we knew we were going to have to raise the millage rate during this budget to pay for the increases due to a lot of different reasons. Compression, minimum wage increase, that created compression. 70% of the voters wanted the increase in pay in this state. Got to pay for it. To commit there and then somehow gut the rest of the budget, there wasn't a lot of discussion about that leading up until this. So gutting the rest of the budget to pay for the increases, we could do that. We're just kicking the can down the road and making it worse. We can do that with the salaries for the manager and attorney already $25,000, $30,000 less than, where they should actually be being paid. We need to, we need to drop what we said we would. We'll drop it down a little bit. There's a few areas I think that we can pull something out. But I have no interest in gutting the budget and the many things that we continuously kick down the road and then needing the employees, getting them paid. We have not raised the millage rate, and I can't even remember how long. I have always been a proponent of taking the ad valorem tax increases as opposed to raising the millage rate. But that was a philosophy based on a city that has run one particular way since its existence. And whether you like it or not, this city has changed. And it's changed mostly by the people who have moved into this community, the residents who want a quality of life and a level of service much greater than what historically the city has provided. This is a very important budget meeting, and this budget meeting looks like many I've attended over the last 9-10 years. It's staff and a couple of residents, that's what makes this up today again. The residents are not mad about their taxes. The residents, in fact, have communicated to me over the years many times. We want X level of service and quality of life, and I've told them I will deliver that to them. That's what they want. they're not here screaming about lowering our taxes. They're not screaming about how they feel overtaxed. So I think that we need to do what the residents have requested and asked for years now and maintain and provide a quality of life and a level of service that they asked for. And I hope to do that in this budget. So Khalid, with that said, you got a little bit of direction. We did get, I appreciate some of the items that some of you brought up that would you be willing to cut. It looks like capital projects may be the biggest area, the general fund. Off the top of, what is our general fund level right now? We need 25% by our own ordinance. Where are we at roughly right now?
Yes, fund balance policy calls for 25% of our budgeted. So this year it's $7.5 million, which we have. In addition, we have about $5 million
Okay, so
over required reserves.
so the 7.5 is roughly the 25% required, and we have an
Yes,
extra 5 million.
yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
The only thing is, just to point out, out of the, the 7.5 is fine. Out of the 5 that we have, the commission has authorized us to use some of the general fund reserve to pay for the elevation projects, with the idea when we get the loan, we will reimburse the general fund reserve back.
The
So-
elevation, you mean the homes on
Yes.
beside? Do we have any idea what that looks like? How fast or how much money is going to be coming out? When? We've been talking about that thing for forever now, 10 years.
Any good idea? No, we know how many, but in terms of the money and when.
10 times 35,000, 350,000.
Okay.
No, you're gonna pay for the whole amount to begin with, so, not a pay, it's not a pay.
So we have 9 homes, and what I'm looking at is, this has been going on like 10 years, it seems. What is how fast and how much money would start coming out from general fund and when? What kind of give me us an idea?
This upcoming fiscal year, you'll see that. Currently working with, the commission awarded the 6 elevation homes to Ducky Recovery. So we're in the process of getting the surveys, boundary surveys. The contractor is to submit the building permits. We actually have inked a contract with them.
Okay.
So we hope to see some progress next fiscal year as.
So my only question is, give me an idea of how much we would take out of general fund this next coming fiscal year.
$1.5 million.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
With 993 right behind it.
Okay, so
for the
we're
3
looking $1.5 million plus 993. You're looking at $2.5 million this fiscal year into the following.
Could be, yeah.
And reimbursement would
Yes.
come how quick?
Well, as soon as we get the loan, get the money, we could just put it back in the general fund reserve, so that's.
Yeah, okay. So
So-
the money would come, even though it goes out, it's gonna come back fairly quickly?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not concerned, we're gonna wait years for
No, when we
FEMA to
talk-
reimburse us or
When I
something?
talked to our financial advisor, because we were trying to we have the bridges and we have the elevation projects, and he
Yeah.
was saying that rather than going in for each one, why don't you when you lump sum these projects, you come back and you take one loan. So that's why, but it takes, as long as we go in and we get the loan, you could reimburse back the general fund reserve immediately. So it shouldn't be like 5 years from now, it should
Yeah.
be pretty soon.
All right. Thank you, Kyle, appreciate it. All right, good. If there's any comments from staff, any last comments from staff?
Well, my understanding is, I think I heard Commissioner Hartman. He said that he would like to drop it from, I think he said 4.08 to 4. I don't think it was 4.08. I think it was 4 points. Could you, Kelly, could you go back and put Natalia's PowerPoint? Just to make sure.
Vice Mayor, do you mind if I ask a quick question?
Well, hold on,
while we're-
hold on, yeah, hold that thought. we're in the middle of, I don't want to get,
Okay.
but yeah, you can ask a question in just a minute.
So if I understood you now, you're talking about percentage instead of 4.08% to make it 4%. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Because that's what you're referring to. So
Yes.
I just want to make sure you're not referring to the millage, you're referring to the percentage of
No,
increase.
and the interesting thing with the millage is, if you look at Ormond Beach, they've reduced their millage, but they're actually going to get more money out of it. Whereas our millage goes up and we receive less total dollars from that, from the millage rate. Obviously, their assessed values are much higher than ours are. So, you know, when you start looking at comparisons, you kind of have to compare everything to everything. I'm comfortable with around a 4% increase. I'll pay the extra $85 a year for the services that I'm getting. I don't have a problem with that. It's, right, it's 1685 times for 100,000 per 100,000. So I'm happy to pay my fair share, 85, to get the police and the fire and the roads and everything else that we get, garbage, whatever. I don't think that's an astronomical amount to ask.
You might not be able to go to lunch one day, that's it.
So Commissioner?
Yes, go ahead.
You were asking, I think it was 4.297 and replace that with 4?
No.
No,
No. Look at the chart.
4.08.
4.08 to just 4.
And just everybody will be.
Percentage.
It's not a lot, so I think,
No, I'm just, I want to say one thing because I just want to be clear because that might, now you say 4.08%, that is from the current millage. But if you go and the increase from the rollback, it's a lot than more from 4.8. I just want to make sure that the commission is aware because even when you go to the current millage, that's still a tax increase.
right.
So when you actually look at it from the rollback, it's a lot more than the 4.28.
Yes, I know that.
But, so the direction I'm getting from the commission is to make it around 4% increase.
From me, yeah.
From the current millage.
Yeah, from me, I understand that there is going to be an increase. The increase is going to be significant. I think it's around 4% to me if you can't find any place to cut any of that stuff, I agree to the original millage rate. But I think that there is some stuff in the budget that can either be put back or done creatively, maybe put funding elsewhere that we can reduce that to where our total is a 4% increase over last year's total millage rate.
We'll go back to the drawing board and see where we could allocate some funding for some of these capital projects, whether we could find the money from somewhere, whether it's an ARPA, whether it's in a grant, and then see what we could do with the other. If that's impossible, then we would recommend to go back to the general fund reserve, but that would be our last resort.
Because we have several of these things that are eligible for ECHO funding, but we applied for no ECHO grants this last cycle. So I think that if, going forward, when they apply for the new, maybe we can get some of those ECHO monies back at the end of the year. So, we may be able to do it that way. Or,
and I thought the pickleball courts were out of the ARPA fund, and it's out of general fund, and he was correct on this one. Because I think it was...
it's out of general fund?
If you remember from the budget presentation that we had on the 26th of June, where the supporters of the pickleball court were in attendance, and they were happy because it included in his budget in leisure services.
But the skate park is coming out of ARPA.
Yeah, the skate park is coming out of the ARPA.
So pickleball is coming out of general fund,
Yes.
and there's park impact fee money available. Then we could use some of that money to offset the pickleball and put that money back into the
We'll go
general
back
fund.
to the drawing board and see what we can As long as I have some clear direction, I think it'll be a lot easier for us to do the work from this point.
Okay.
And please let me reiterate, if gentlemen, you mentioned reserves at the very end if we had to. If we could strongly keep that into the balance sheet.
Normally, I don't like to go to the
I
general fund
know.
reserve, so that would be my last resort. I would not go there first, I would go to the other things.
But if you can look at, bank fees was close to $100,000, and if we pass on that fee to the provider, to the user, then, that will provide us more money in the general fund.
So-
We're not paying for people to use their credit cards.
So I don't mind that. Now, the legality of it, I've looked into it myself, private sector. I see governments doing that. I'm not quite sure if they have a different standard. I'm for it. So I'm for that. We just need to make sure that we can legally do that.
I think we are, and so we have to bring it back as
Sure.
either a resolution or an ordinance in order for us to be able to use that 3 or 4%.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thought is as long as they have the ability to pay by check,
You give 'em
or cash, as long as they have the ability to pay a different way, it's their convenience, the convenience fee, that's what it's for.
Right.
Right.
I mean, how many people at the marina pay with credit cards? I would think that there are other ways for them to pay their fee. So this is, like you said, a convenience for them. Why should it be on the burden of the taxpayer for them to have a convenience using a credit card?
I will check with finance to see, the biggest user out of credit card, where it comes from, so we could have an idea. I mean, my assumption would be probably the parking, maybe the business tax receipt, maybe building permits. Right now, building permits, it's quite a bit that they have to be online, and they use the credit card, So if you're looking at, a local comparing to out of the area, I think there's a lot of locals that they use it.
Right, but if he's a local using it, then he can drop off a check just as easy as he can
Yeah. Well, I
put
mean,
down a piece of plastic where he's going to get reward points for it.
just makes it easier for them, I guess, to pay online because it's, normally what happens is when they're looking at applying for the permit and it's time to pick up the permits, I mean, they could do the payment online. I mean, they could drop it, as long as we give them the option to drop it in check or come into finance and pay it cash, then I think we're okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I think, not putting words in anybody's mouth, but things that got brought up, fire tanks, the addition to the picking up the house behind the firehouse, the addition, maybe a vehicle, pickleball courts came up a couple times, skate park one time. So it looks like there's some capital expenditures that people either want to take off or push down the road. So that's what those are what my notes say.
I'll do everything possible
Yeah.
to bring it to the 4.0% increase. And hopefully that will get the commission.
Well, bring us some
satisfaction
options and we'll make a
on the
decision.
14th. Excuse me?
Bring us some options, we'll make a decision.
I will.
All right. Any staff member, everybody covered? All right. With that said, I'll adjourn the meeting. Good job.